Okay, I've started to get a few emails with questions about this week's assignment, and I thought I'd go ahead and upload a video explaining each one. So, very quickly, assignment number one, which is PFL 6, this will just be a comments only grade, just like all your other PFLs. Create your own primary source document chronicling your own experiences during this pandemic each weekday. Now, if you did not go into Manage Back yesterday, you can always write a journal entry after the fact, but just date it for Monday and just tell me what you did on Monday using the writing prompts. So let me open up that document where it explains everything here. So again, I had mentioned in here, so you're creating a primary source of your firsthand experience of what's going on right now, of this pandemic, you can even talk about things that have already happened, about when you found out that you wouldn't be going back to school right after spring break, and then when you found out that you wouldn't be going back until May 8th, and just talk about, you know, your emotions, how you've dealt with it, what you did during the first week, and then how it's been ever since then. But it's you, in your words, in your own words. Please write in complete sentences, but put it in your own words and just tell me about what you've been up to. Okay, so this is a firsthand account, your firsthand account of what life is like for you during this pandemic. So I wrote in here that you can handwrite it into a composition book, loose leaf paper, whatever, or you can keep a digital journal, meaning you can type it, or you can, put it in a Google Doc, and you can even include pictures. If you're handwriting it, you can draw pictures, or you can, cut stuff out of the newspaper and include it. Or if you're creating a digital journal, you can copy and paste pictures that you either take of yourself doing things, or of your house, of the stuff that you're doing, or what you hear in the news. Just make sure you include a date with each entry. So this should not take you long. It's just something that you spend on a little bit each day. And so down here, I gave you some examples of writing prompts. You don't have to use all of these. But, just if you're having a hard time thinking of what should I write about, I didn't do anything today, then just use those writing prompts for ideas. They're not all inclusive. You may think of other prompts, other ideas that you can write down that are not included here. So again, make a journal entry for every weekday, Monday through Friday. You do not have to do this over the weekend, unless you want to, something happened over the weekend that you want to include. Okay, so it's just keeping a journal. All right, so let me cancel that out. All right, the next assignment. This is a formative, okay? So this is C criterion. So you will be assessed according to the strands on C criterion, and which you have all of the criteria in the command criteria section of your binder if you want to refresh your memory as to what C criterion is all about. Here you are analyzing primary sources on Texas annexation. Now, the very first one, I copied the U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 3, right here. And I just want you to read through that and mostly focus on the first paragraph, because all the stuff about the second paragraph is about territories and whatnot. You don't need to worry about that. But everything in the first paragraph, I just want you to tell me, what does that mean in your own words? How would you... what would you say is required in order for a state to become one of the United States? What is required? And then, what do they limit, or what do they forbid according to the Constitution? So just tell me what that first paragraph means in your own words. It's your interpretation, okay? And then, oh, again, let me just say this before I move on to the next page. If you guys don't have a printer, I did mention this on here. If you don't have a printer, that's okay. You don't have to print all of these out in order to do them. You can just write your answer to that question on a piece of notebook paper and then turn that work in, okay? And the same goes for everything else. All right, now here, these are your primary sources for or against annexation of Texas to the U.S. I'm not going to tell you who is for and who is against, because I want you guys to figure that out by reading them. So we have Anson Jones, Henry Clay, Sam Houston, John C. Calhoun, the Central Clay Club of Northampton County, George Allen, Stephen A. Douglas, and all of these people have written their arguments either for or against annexation. And so I want you to read them and decide, okay, is this person for annexation or against? Okay. And then, and that's what I want you to do down here is say, okay, if this person or this club is for annexation, then write their name down here. Okay. And then tell me in your own words what their arguments are. Okay. And then what evidence do you have for those arguments? And that's where you would just include the quote from, the little, let's say if you think, well, let's start with an easy one. Anson Jones, he says, I have considered annexation on favorable terms as the most secure and advantageous measure for Texas. Well, that's obvious which side he's on, for or against. So you would put him in the corresponding chart. And then, based on what he says there, what do you think he's arguing for in your own words? And then include the quote, not the entire thing, but include the quote of, what he said that made you feel like that was the argument. Okay. So this is where you're citing your evidence. So here's the argument in your own words, and then the evidence. What's the direct quote? And then on the last page, we have the anti-annexation arguments. So again, based on what they said, who do you think was against annexation? What was their argument or arguments? And then what's the evidence for that? And that's it. Okay. So again, you can reproduce these on a piece of notebook paper. You can draw the chart yourself. If you don't have a printer. Now, if you do have a printer, fantastic. Okay, but guys, if you have a printer, when you're turning in your work, you do not have to turn in all of these quotes. Okay. You only need to turn in your work. Okay. So what you fill in here and then what you write under here. Make sense? And then the very last assignment is the easiest one. This one should be fun, and do it last because it will make more sense to you once you've spent time learning what the arguments for annexation were or what the arguments against annexation were. And here's where you get to draw your own political cartoon. Remember when we talked about political cartoons and I even projected one up on the board, and it was a caricature of Donald Trump and him sitting at his desk, and it looked like a military guy standing off in the shadow looking very nervous. And he had two giant buttons on the desk in front of him, and one said tweet and the other one said nuclear, I think. And then I asked you guys, what do you see in this picture? It didn't say anything else. There were no word bubbles or anything. And yet you guys got a lot out of the political cartoon based on just the symbols and the things that were exaggerated or emphasized. And so that's what I want you guys to do. You can include word bubbles, and you can even include a little caption at the bottom if you want to. But I want you to communicate through drawing. And again, this is not art class. You don't have to be terribly artistic to do this. But I just want you to be specific on what symbols or caricatures you might use in order to make your argument for or against annexation based on what you read in the text packet, and also based on the quotes that you read in the second assignment for this week. Okay? So that is all. I hope that helps answer any of your questions. By the way, all of these assignments, you guys have been used to turning them in by 8 a.m. on Monday. We have been told now that from now on, your assignments are going to be turned in on Sunday. So I'm going to be moving the Dropbox to Sunday, not at 8 o'clock in the morning, but by Sunday night, 11:55 p.m. is when the assignments will be due. So I'm going to be moving the Dropbox to then. And I hope you guys are not waiting until Sunday night to do your work. Please don't. So this will help you to get your work in on time. And it will also declutter your Mondays, because on Monday, when you have all of the Dropboxes and all of the assignments, I know your calendars are much more cluttered than mine because I just have humanities here and you guys have all 8 of your subjects. So all of your Dropboxes are going to be moved to Sunday night. And that way on Mondays, all you're going to see are your tasks for that week. All right, that's all. Bye-bye.